Hi there, welcome back to our class on literature, proudly sponsored by O3 Schools JAMB app. And today our topic is literary terms. Literary terms can also be called literary devices. So we have literary terms or devices. We hear literary terms, you hear literary devices. We're talking about same thing, and they are simply the terminologies associated with literature. Associated with literature. So just like all disciplines have their terms common to them, or should I say peculiar rather, to those disciplines, those individual disciplines like mathematics, economics, commerce, what have you. They have terms that you use when dealing with such disciplines. Same thing for literature. There are some terms that are what peculiar to this subject, and that is when you're in a literature class or you're doing something related to literature that these terms keep popping up. So those are literary terms, or we call them literary devices. There are also the styles, the technique, or let's say format, or technique, plural, used by writers. So literary terms or devices are terminologies associated with literature, like the discipline literature. I would say they are also like the style or the format writers use in their various literary works. Writers use these literary works to, now we are dealing with the importance now. Literary terms. One, to drive their point across. So writers can use these literary terms or devices to drive their point across, to pass a message to the readers or the audience. They use these literary terms. Then they can use it to evoke emotions. Depending on the techniques a writer uses, he can draw an emotion he wants from the readers. Emotions involve, let's say, anger, pride, jealousy, amusement, joy, you know, suspense, etc. So, depending on the literary techniques a writer uses, he can draw emotions from the audience or from the readers, the emotion that he wants or she wants the writers to like feel while reading the work. So, they can use literary terms to do that. You can also use literary terms to show different perspectives. So most times things are not always as the same. There are always like two sides or three sides, as the case may be, to something. At a particular time, you may be looking at it in one angle, but writers can use literary terms or literary devices to show us different perspectives of something. That's why you can have like so many books on, let's say, pride, for example, but each writer has what a different perspective that they wrote it from, or they wrote it from a different angle. So literary works can show us the different perspectives to things. Then it can also be used to convince or persuade. Literary terms or devices. Writers can use it to strengthen their arguments about something, and you'll be like, okay, I agree with this write up. I agree with what this author is saying. You can use literary devices to strengthen, to solidify your point of view. Okay, this is why people should see it this way. With literary terms like that we're going to be looking at, you'll be able to see how they use these things to like convince audiences or readers about a particular idea or concept, as the case may be. Literary appreciation. For literary appreciation, we should be familiar with literary terms or devices so that we can be able to properly understand works of literature. If you're able to understand that, oh, this is what this writer is making use of, I see what this writer is trying to do, you will better enjoy a work of a literary work if you're able to understand. So, in recapping, we said literary terms can also be called literary devices, and they are the terminologies associated with literature. They are also the style, technique, or format writers use in their works. And we said literary terms are important for these reasons. One, writers use it to drive their points across to the audience. They use it to express themselves. They use it to highlight important themes in their work, important things that they want readers to note. You can use literary terms to do that. Then to evoke emotions, you can use it to draw emotions from people. Literary terms, we mentioned examples of some of these emotions or feelings that you can use literary terms to elicit from readers or audiences, sorry. Show different perspectives. So many books can be on the same topic, but they are different. The authors could even have completely different points of views, but they are still talking about the same thing. So you can use literary terms or devices to show different perspectives of a particular concept, then to convince or persuade, also for literary appreciation, for us to better understand works of literature or literary works. Essentially, literary terms or devices is what differentiates your writing from just like a common write-up. It gives it that special quality. Should I say that wow effect? So literary terms, by the time you incorporate them into your work and the readers are able to understand, you can now say, okay, yes, this is such a good book. That's literary terms. So we'll now look at the literary terms one after the other. There are very many and they are similar in their definition, so it's quite confusing. Just pay attention and I promise you, you'll be fine. So let's look at the literary terms. Up first, we have autobiography. Autobiography. Autobiography is a self-written account of a person's life. Let's give it a definition. Written account of a person's life. It's a self-written account of a person's life. While it can be written by anybody, it is usually written by famous people mostly. Examples, we have Long Walk to Freedom. Examples are Long Walk to Freedom, written by Nelson Mandela. Also, we have Dreams of My Father, written by Barack Obama. So self-written accounts, like story of a person written by that person, we refer to it in literature as autobiography. And these are common examples: Long Walk to Freedom, Dreams of My Father. Note that it is not only celebrities or popular people that can write autobiographies. If you like, you can do it. There are no like rules to it, or mostly it's written by famous people. So next we have the opposite, which is biography. So this is written by the person, but this one is written by another person. Let's say it's the history, is a written account of a person's life by another person. So it is the history of an individual written by someone else. Someone can write my story now, it becomes a biography. But if I do it myself, I write my own story, it's an autobiography. The opposite is biography. When you write a story of someone else, refer to it as biography. Now, biography takes lots of research, which is mostly if it's for a living person, because biographies can be written for living people or dead people. So whichever one, it takes lots of research because this is someone else's life. You are just like an outsider trying to write about that person's experiences in life. So you need research mostly, especially if it's for living people. It usually involves like following the person around maybe for like a period of time, staying with the person, and then the person will also grant interviews which you will now use to like write your work. That's biography. And it doesn't make use of first person pronouns, it makes use of third person pronouns because you're talking of someone else now. Nothing like I did this, it wasn't you that did it, it was the person. So you see he, they, him, pronouns like that. Then I said it takes lots of research. A good example is the history of Ojuku, written, let's see the title, The People's General. Let's say a good example is the book The People's General. In this, a theatrical biography of Ojuku as an institution by Dickers. So this chief, Sylvester Obi Dickers, wrote a biography on Ojuku. That's it. So if Ojukwu had written the story himself, it would be an autobiography. But this one is written by Chief Sylvester Obi Dickers. So this is a biography written by someone else. That's just the major difference. One is written by the person he saw herself. The other is written by someone else. So you can write a biography on your hero or someone that you think has achieved something great. You want people to like see how the person achieved it or how the person has been living his life up until that moment of such a big achievement. That's it for autobiography and biography. Up next, we look at character. Our next literary theme is character. So a literary character is an imaginative person in a work. Let's put it that way. Character or literary character. Character is an imaginary person in a literary work. It is imaginary. Writers make them up in their literary works. You need characters to perform the actions that the narrative will be about. Whatever literary work you're working on, you need characters to like bring it to life. So these characters could be human, they could be objects, it could be an idea like abstract, or it could be animals even. So but you need these characters to perform the actions, to move the plots of the narrative along. You need them in literary works. So writers make them up, which is why we have imaginary here. Writers make them up. Characters do not exist for real. They are just made up by writers to move the plot along or to perform the actions in the narrative. Now, characters are of different types. First up, we have major characters. One, major characters. Just like the name implies, major character. They are the most important characters in the story, or I keep using it in the narrative. The most important characters, like the plot or centers around these characters. Could be one, could be more than one, as the case may be. So it centers around the major character. These ones are very important to they're very important in the literary work. The work is like about them. So we refer to them as the major character. And for major character, we can have the protagonist. We have the protagonist under major character. The protagonist is like the principal character. The actions of the protagonist drives the plot or the story or the narrative the most, and it's very easy to tell the protagonist most times. Sometimes it might be a little bit difficult, but most times it's easy to like tell the protagonist. Sometimes you find out that the narrative or the literary work is named after the protagonist, and sometimes you can have more than one protagonist in a work. A good example is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. There's more than one protagonist. And also notes. I know growing up when we used to like see movies, protagonist always comes across as the good guy or the actor. Let's put it that way. So not all times that the protagonist is actually like a hero or a good character. We are just dealing with whose character is like most important, not whether the person was actually good or bad. So it's not all the times that the protagonist, it's not all the time, sorry, that the protagonist is actually like a hero. Then next we have antagonist. So the antagonist is the principal opponent of the protagonist. That's why they are both like major characters. That's if there's an antagonist. It's like the principal opponent of the protagonist. So it's almost like their characters are kind of intertwined. While the spotlight is still on the protagonist, you have this one coming a close second. So these are major characters. The antagonist most times causes conflict for the protagonist. So the antagonist can be anything. It can be a human, an object, it can be nature, or it can even be the protagonist if the conflict is from within. Then we have other lesser major characters. They are not so major, but we cannot classify them as minor characters. So we have the deuteragonist. Is it spelling? As well as tritagonist. The tetragonist and tritagonist. This is like the second important person in a narrative, and then the third important person. So they may not be as important as these two characters, but they also matter in the narrative. That's why I said they are lesser major characters, but we can't classify them as minor characters. That brings us to our next type of character, minor character. So for minor characters, they are not really as important as the major characters, but the narrative needs them. So they just play like one or two roles, and probably their presence in the narrative helps to influence the decisions made by the major characters. So we still need minor characters, even though they may not be as important as the major characters. Then another type of character we have is the round character. Round character. Round characters, characters that change throughout the story, along the plot of the story. These characters will change. Then we have the opposite which is flat character. We have flat character, just as these ones change, these ones stay static. So round characters change like along the line, while flat characters remain the same from the beginning to the end of that narrative. We also have what is called foil character. A foil character is a character that has like opposite characteristics or traits or qualities to another character. For example, the antagonist is a foil to the protagonist. You have just like opposing characters, opposing qualities, sorry. So a foil character is a character that opposes another one. So like a good example is the antagonist being a foil to the protagonist. Then we have like a clown, also called jester or dramatic fool. Clown, jester, or dramatic fool. This character makes people laugh in narrative. So these are the characters we have. Like remember I said character is an imaginary person in a literary work. Characters are imaginations of the writers, and then we have the types: major characters like important characters, and which is divided into protagonist and antagonist, and lesser characters like the deuteragonist and tritagonist. We have the minor characters, round characters, flat character, foil character, and the clown, also known as jester or dramatic fool.